This is Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of important issues of the day. This on-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views.
That was my fault again.
Without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492. Are we tweeting today?
We're not. No, we're not tweeting today. I'm so sorry. I'm terribly unprofessional.
On the fuzzy side of the bed today.
I'd like to apologize to anyone listening for the ineptitude that I'm displaying at the board today.
They don't know what they don't see, Paul. Come on.
But luckily, all the staff is at a meeting, so they're not listening. We hope. Oh, dear.
Forget about the archives. Okay.
So,
Friendship.
Now, so call 415-663-8492 or 8317. We have two lines in the studio. And when you call in, you'll hear a little noise as I put you in the system. Just hang on until you hear me say you're on the air, and then turn down your radio. Give us a name. Your first name, or any first name. And please do keep it clean. Keep the language clean. And as you said, friendship. So this was an idea that came from Stephen Hurwitz. Oh, we're also joined by Shelley Rugg
Hello.
and Charles Schultz.
Yes.
Stephen Hurwitz is back after a 2-week vacation from radio life.
Oh, we got some hiss.
We do. Where is that coming from? The ocean, a tidal wave,
yes, exactly. There is a low surf advisory that may invade the radio station. Why friendship? I ask you, Stephen Hurwitz.
Well, apparently Professor Dunbar is allowing us 150 friends at the most.
150?
Who's Professor Dunbar? What does this mean?
He's done extensive research on friendship.
Oh.
Who is he?
Who is he?
Where does he teach, this professor?
He's an anthropology professor at. Come now, you sent me that. give me a break here. I got things to do.
I'm very poor on details.
I can
that by now.
Well, I can give you a local example. This is just over the border in Sonoma County, but there is a fellow who is notoriously unfriendly to his tenants and his neighbors. And he's in, I think, his 9th decade now, and he has been working his whole life on his magnum opus, A Study of Happiness. Which I
Right.
particularly amusing.
His happiness doesn't come from friends, apparently.
Apparently, though.
Well, certainly not the people friends with me, just misery.
150 is really not the number of personal friends. 15 is what you're capable of, close friends, and then intimate friends apparently are 5.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
The Dunbar.
Well, I mean, that's quite high. I mean, I think. Well, maybe I should speak for myself. It depends what you mean by friendship, because, of course, we live in an age in which concepts are hollowed out for the purposes of marketing. So, for instance, you have Facebook friends. Whom perhaps you have never met.
That is good.
Right.
Of course.
So, good point to bring that up.
What do you mean by friend? 415-663-8492, or our hatred line, 663-8317.
What?
Let's see.
Special line just for today.
Dunbar is a
Special is nice.
British anthropologist, Robin Dunbar. He first proposed this number of your friend group, the number of people that you can maintain stable relationships. He did it by extrapolating human brain size, comparing it to social groups in other primates, and depending on their brain size, their social groups are smaller and larger. You know, they change. So, taking that information and applying it to the human brain size, he decided that 150 was a social group with which you can maintain stable relationships. My favorite quote, which I put in the blurb, was, it's the number of people you wouldn't feel embarrassed about joining uninvited for a drink if you happen to bump into them in a bar. Obviously, he's a Brit.
Yeah, that number for me is infinite. There's no, I'll bump into anybody in a bar.
There is no embarrassment.
Uh-oh, look out.
Oh, indeed.
And so then he found there are 3 subgroups of kind of natural sizes of social groups: 30 to 50, 100 to 150, and then 200 to 300 as a tribe kind of thing. But that's kind of how things organize themselves. There's all kinds of examples, apparently, of kind of naturally occurring or historically occurring social groups that conform to those numbers. So,
wow.
I think that, because to me, like friendship, like so many concepts, has been flipped on its head. I would say a friend is somebody who can disagree with you, and that doesn't end your relationship, or can criticize you, or you can have conflict, and that doesn't mean I'm never going to talk to that person again. Whereas I think today we have a kind of sentimental idea of what friendship is, in which your friend is the one who never disagrees with you, who never criticizes, who never this, who never that. I
don't know if that's sentimental as much as superficial.
Well, I would say it's not rather than sentimentality is the kind of superficial quality of emotion.
I think though good friends are people that you don't have a problem sharing your problems with, your details. Go to them for support when you need it. Those are your good friends.
Support and or abuse.
Abuse is fabulous. I have a friend in Tamaulipas I visit specifically to be abused. Anyway, but full disclosure, I am Catholic. But I think that but also we have a problem with the utilitarian culture, right? Which is, are you the friend that only calls when you have bad news and need support and want to cry on somebody's shoulder, and then when you're feeling good, nowhere to be found? Because we've all had those kinds of friends, I think, probably. But I think it's sort of a norm, too. In a utilitarian society, people have uses. So you need a friend at certain moments, and then you don't need them. But I think we like to think about love or friendship as being deeper than that, having a transcendent quality in which, together in thick and thin, or sickness and in health.
But, you bring something up. Friendship is something that is flexible. Yes, you might have close friends now, and they drop out, and then people that were acquaintances become close friends based on activities
so
that
things
you
shift
seems
and
that
evolve.
Activities that you share together are very important about bonding.
But then you say some friends transcend all that, right? Some friends you don't do the same things. Or whatever, your lives have changed in many ways over many years, and you still are able to have that bond. Now, for our studio audience, look at Paul Wentz when I preface this comment by referencing the name of a Greek philosopher. But Aristotle said that
so many things.
Aristotle said that friendship is something that happens in contact, and that when you separate, if you're not in the presence of your friend, then you cease to be friends. Now, you might get back together again, and your friendship can begin again. It's not as though you can't pick up where you left off. But he says, if you're not in contact, you're not friends. And whether or not Aristotle's right, I think it's an interesting point of reflection in a culture which says, I can be friends with somebody on another continent. I can be friends with somebody on the other side of the country. I can be friends over the phone. I can be friends through the internet.
Right.
I wonder if we attenuated this concept of friendship to the point in which it has no meaning. So I know lots of people who like to imagine that they're friends with everybody. I'm just like, well, then friendship doesn't exist. Friendship is specific, and maybe friendship is temporal and geographically specific. I'm friends with the people who I'm in contact with in this moment.
Well, there are different. Okay, so there's different layers of friendship. I mean, yes, of course, you can be friends with people. School friends that now live in
exactly.
Or people
Flint,
you work
or,
with.
But they're really not.
You're in contact with people. Sebastian, until 2 weeks ago, did not live in Westmoreland. He was in Oakland. You count him as a friend. He doesn't live next door to you, though. I mean, what is the geographic boundary that
I have friends, 5 friends from college friends, way back. We get together maybe once or twice a year. I consider them friends.
We've met them. the Sandusky gang.
No,
Or the Columbus gang.
the Columbus gang.
Columbus boy.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I have had experiences where I've had really good friendships. I had a really sweet friendship with a neighbor. We were both young mothers at the time, and it was so awesome because she used a bread machine, and she was like always baking something, and she'd just walk over to my house with a plate of cinnamon twists, hot out of the oven.
Exactly.
It was so sweet. And when I had meltdowns as a mother, she, was someone I could go and talk to.
Nice.
But then she moved away. And it's not like she moved to another state. She just moved to another town. But, I knew, I just had this feeling that was going to be how the friendship dissolved. And it really kind of did. We lost touch. But then flash forward to more recently, I made a friend here in town. And she moved away, and I shared with her my fear, that we would dissolve. And she swore to me that she wouldn't let that happen. So that was super sweet of her. And, we don't talk all the time, but we do.
Well, but
actually, she comes out to visit. And so that's really awesome.
So she's not that far away.
Well, the visiting thing is important, but I think that the idea of the friendship devolving or dissolving is entirely natural.
But then there's also those friends who you just periodically pop in with each other. So, I have friends that I used to work with down south, for example. And so when I take a trip south, I make a point of getting together with my old friends. But I lived there for... over 30 years. So,
well, to me, it's I'm for the first time in 8 years leaving Marshall to go back east, which is just terrible. I didn't want to do it, but I will be visiting.
Some people are breathing easier.
Paul actually had to move out of Marshall, thinking that I would never do this, but it is actually going to happen.
This is a tremor to the force.
Is this just a trip, or are you leaving us?
Just a trip. I'm going to help my mother with something, and
because I don't want to worry about our friendship.
Well, you'd have to. If I'm gone, I'm gone. But the thing is that I'm going to stop in and see relatives and see people I went to college with, people I lived with in Brooklyn, and this thing and that, the other thing.
Right.
But in a real way. Their lives have gone in whatever direction, and I'm going to meet somebody who's people who are much changed, or maybe not. But I wouldn't think of them as my friends. I do have a friend. I'm going to visit in Madison, Wisconsin. The wonderful Tom Duncan, who has a radio show there. The bumper sticker for that radio station you still have. He probably gave it away. Pointing at Paul Ravel here.
Well, what about?
But he when I met him, he lived in the Fillmore, and he said, "You want to make a friend? Ask somebody for a favor, or offer to do him a favor." And what he was saying is that you need to embed your friendships in place and in contact, and try and build up this idea of reciprocity. So I like going over to, say, Matt Porter's house in Marshall and babysitting, which I did. They let me babysit their child. So,
no way.
No, California Child Protective Services. They live in Marshall. I can point at their house to them that they need to have that child taken into care. But to me, I love if there's some favor you can do for somebody. To me, that's the richest thing. Parties, okay. I mean, they're fun, but I'd much rather work on a project together.
Well, so then we're different gradations of friends, of course.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about the spectrum, because it sounds like you have a very narrow definition of friends.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that it's more of a spectrum.
Well, but again, to me, that degrades the idea of friendship, because what people call casual acquaintances.
It's just a different level.
But it's
casual acquaintances. Just get a new word. Don't say it's a spectrum.
Yeah, so like you and I, right?
Casual acquaintances?
Right, I think, because, we know each other.
You never invite me over.
You never invite me over either.
Well, you haven't seen my place. I mean, to be fair.
Well, you haven't seen mine either.
Well, fair point. Shelley, what are you doing after the show? Well, no, I think
I'm meeting a friend for lunch.
Well, friendship is a practice.
You brought something up, though, Charles.
I like that idea. Yeah. Friendship as a practice.
The thing about these friends that I have, the 5 friends from school, it's interesting to watch us age together. So that's interesting. I can see and the experiences, the good times and the bad times they've gone through, the sicknesses. I think that's very interesting to watch that progress through the same friend.
50 years. Right?
That's right, 50 years.
Yeah. See,
Yeah, I just want to stay in touch with my
I'm not good
college
at this friendship thing, Ray. 415-663-8492. Please give us a call. Give us some of your thoughts about friendship, about friends that you've had, friends you've lost.
Well, you're a very good
friends
friend,
who've
Paul.
broken up with you because of something you said or believe in. Or
I
whatever.
had someone. Well, I broke up with a friend once.
Over a card game, what was going on?
It just was sort of the realization that I didn't jive with her values, I guess, because I found my jaw dropping open frequently when she would say or do things. And I turned the mirror back on myself. I said, whoa, you need to look at the fact that you're not digging this person. And so I, for whatever reason, decided I needed to sort of formally say, well, I need to let go of this relationship. But then, years later, my best friend, who we did projects together, we got grants together, we really got each other and we could work well together. And I helped him actually leave LA and move up here. And then things didn't fall into place the way we thought they were going to.
Sure.
And somehow he decided that I had betrayed our friendship and that we could no longer be friends. And I haven't.
Wait, because
Wow.
you moved up here? Because
I helped him move up
you
here.
helped him move.
But it's a long kind of story that I'm not going to go into.
Thank
but
you.
the thing is,
Geez, Steve. Well,
wow.
We have a caller, though.
oh, I see.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
Hello, Paul. It's Mo from Inverness.
Hello, Mo.
Hooray.
Hello, how are you?
Very well.
Lovely program.
Thanks.
Well, I just want to let you know that we have very, very good friends who are politically and religiously opposite the spectrum to us.
Ah.
And we get together about every third or fourth month, and we have a luncheon and sit and talk for about 3-4 hours. And we are exceedingly good friends. We feel that they're extended family, and we are able to discuss religion and politics and without anger.
Oh, well, this is lovely. So you're not avoiding the subjects. You're actually going into them, but because you're close enough, you feel you can do it. That's lovely.
Yes, and I think that we're mature enough that we can understand where they're coming from. They're also. I think it makes a big difference. They're also, wonderful human beings. So you can get disgusting human beings on both sides of the spectrum, as I said.
Yes,
So
that's true.
this way, it's just I think how one's attitude is towards what friends really are. I think that makes a difference.
You don't expect them to be clones of yourself.
No, absolutely not. And sometimes we feel perhaps, in some instances that we agree with what they say, we understand it, but we don't really accept. We don't change. I don't know that we really change each other in terms of politics or religion, but we do get to understand more the way they're thinking and vice versa.
Well, that's lovely.
Okay.
Thank you, Mo. That's a wonderful call. Thanks.
Well, I think we should do more of that. I think people should invite their people they might like to be friends with over or whatever, and have contact with them. And then also, if you have conflict when you have so and so over, to allow yourself to be very forgiving of that. I think, and go back into a relationship that instead of immediately saying, "Oh, we disagreed on this. I'm never talking to that person again," to actually allow yourself to, have fights. And friends you can have fights with.
Yes.
Yeah, I
right.
think that's one of the things that disturbed me so much when my friend broke up with me is that one of the things he had introduced me to was the idea of vulnerability, and that in our vulnerability, that's what really connects us. And so it was a hard one to deal with, really hard.
Oh, we have a caller. Hi, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
Hi, Paul. It's MK.
MK.
Hi, MK.
Everybody wonderful?
Everyone
Well,
looks
I am.
wonderful.
Hello, I am.
That's totally unverifiable on the radio. He's lying. I look like a bag of garbage.
You're wonderful, Charles. Come on.
Why, thank you, my darling. I'll call you later. So, MK, friendship.
Friendship, yes.
You're for it.
I'm all for. Well,
Well,
I think that as you get older, you really find out who your friends are, and I think that if they had called Facebook friends members or some other word other than friends, it would have changed the dynamic of friendship. I mean, of Facebook considerably, because I'd have people on my Facebook friends list that I've never met, but we share political sameness and sense of humor and whatever else. But my the people that I consider to be real friends are they're not that many. And one of them I rode on the school bus in the first grade with back in Sterling Junction, Massachusetts, and we're still connected. And one high school friend. I went to different high schools, so didn't really develop many close associations there. And here in Seattle, there are a lot of people that I know, but very few that I would consider to be really friends, because they don't. I'm not as revelatory, or I'm not going to give up that much of myself anymore, I think.
But that's interesting, the point you make about Facebook, which it wouldn't function if it was called random association page.
Right.
It only functions by, like all marketing, the black magic of the last 100 years, by convincing you of this lie. And if the lie wasn't present, it doesn't work. When I was a school teacher, I said, show of hands, who has the most Facebook friends? And back then, I think it was limited somehow. Somebody has 200, 300, 400. I said,
right.
What can you tell me about each of those people? Can you tell me their favorite color? Can you tell me whether their parents are divorced? I mean, and what is revealed is that there is no connection. And so that's why I really despise things like that. Now, I understand my mother has children all over the country, indeed all over the world. And so for her, it's quite painful. She wants to stay in touch with her grandchildren.
like a queen ant, or you're talking about children all over the world?
Well, yes, sorry, Mom. She got around a lot in the 70s.
She hatched a lot.
No. I mean, just in the sense that I feel badly, especially badly for parents. We have an economy that says everybody has to scatter to the corners of the earth, and then how do you maintain contact with your children, people you the most intimate relationship with?
That's a good question.
No.
It makes me
children
sad.
be friends.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Well, I'll
I'm
give
saying.
you, MK, you might like this, that why do grandparents and grandchildren get along so well? They share a common enemy. So there you go.
I only have 2 grandchildren, and I don't really feel that way about the common.
Oh, you
yeah,
will.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But
It is a joke, of course.
yeah, I understand that. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, though, because I don't know. There's some people that just seem to need great herds of people that they can call friends, so they can all get together and talk and not listen to each other and
It's narcissists, are what you're talking
make noises. I guess
Make noises.
Well, no, they really do. I mean,
Well, instead of discussing anything of importance or
I wouldn't necessarily go rushing off into their parlor and sit down and bare my soul.
Right.
I certainly
Well, our
would not do that.
What about friends who get together occasionally for potlucks? I mean, we have a lot of those in Marshall. I
We have a
consider
lot
them
of those.
friends.
But those are neighbors.
They're not intimate friends, but
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, neighbors. I mean, if there's a spectrum, I think neighbors are part of that spectrum. So I have a lot of neighbors that I associate with, and some of them are my friends, and some of them are acquaintances, and some of them,
That's right.
I particularly care for, and some I don't particularly care for. But do you use?
I think it takes a while for maybe a long while for real friendships to develop, because you're going to change over the years, and some of those people are going to ditch you, because it's happened to me many times, because you change and you go off in a totally different direction than they're used to going, and they haven't done it, and maybe it's envy on their part because they haven't. Or maybe they don't understand the circumstances of why you've changed, because you have a broken heart or a broken marriage or whatever else. People move ahead and sideways and forward for different reasons.
Yeah, that brings up another friendship issue is when your marriage breaks, you know.
And you have
Who gets the friends?
They have to decide.
Who inherits the friends, yes.
Yeah, it puts friends in an awkward position sometimes, I guess.
I got all the good ones.
Interesting, though, that one time when my first marriage broke up, to the poet, when I have nothing against poets, unless they
I do.
Poetry about me being pregnant to great rooms full of people, which is what happened. That people would come up to me and say, "You're the poet."
Oh.
You know, they'd put up with this behavior for for free wine or something. I don't know. But,
Were you able to maintain any of those friendships after your divorce?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
But that's hard.
I think they've all sort of disappeared, but that's a really long time ago.
Yeah.
That's 45 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
But I think, these passing acquaintanceships, we have this desire to label all of this stuff friendship because we would like to pretend that we don't live, lives of lonely, very separate lives.
I
we want
think
friendship.
isn't it just lazy grammar? I mean, isn't it just you don't want to say the word acquaintance? It's just a friend of mine. An acquaintance of mine.
Well, yeah, but we're trying to taxonomize.
Acquaintance sounds formal, yeah.
my children
I love
use
this
people's names
lazy
all the time
grammar.
with my friend so-and-so. My friend so-and-so and my friend so-and-so.
Yeah, I'm getting...
A lot of
Right, it's
friends.
just shorthand.
But I'm getting back into the sense of which friendship has been degraded by, the example I used, the Facebook friend. So,
Right.
yes, it's true that we have a colloquial meaning for
And
friendship.
Facebook friends, I mean, that was very carefully chosen.
Yes, it
because
was.
Because it triggers those brain...
You want
the
friends.
nerve centers in your brain that says, oh, I have friends.
But nobody's
you really
pretending that they're friends in the sense
Well,
that we're talking about.
their brain is.
The brain
That's
is,
the
yeah.
interesting point. Is when you get likes and things like that, these things go off in your head that make you feel good.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to have friends? Everybody wants to have friends. And so the evil of this kind of marketing world is that it will sell you like a sneaker and say it's friend brand.
Well, you
sneakers.
buy friends actually on Facebook. Someone has 60 mutual friends. It's
Hard
it's
to
so much
believe, isn't it?
easier to friend that person when you have such a wide group of friends.
Well, here's another point I'd say is that like friendship to me often comes out of shared trauma, shared difficulty, shared suffering.
Sure.
But what we have, the friendship as a concept that I'm opposed to is one that lives completely in the world of a sort of sentimental fiction. This is playdate friends. This is, we all get together in this one little place and we have a little perfect, curated moment. I don't have many friends like that. I think of a friend as something that, you have a deeper bond, and a deeper bond always, I think, means dealing with the difficulty of life, not merely its pleasures.
I like the expression "fair weather friend."
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that a few times. And,
Well,
So when
but because if a person that you know and have been associated with for a long time is having a major difficulty that was brought on by their own ridiculous behavior, you don't have to support it. But that if that person is as insecure as those people usually are, that sort of means the end of the trail.
Well, and there's a certain amount of reflection that takes place, too. Do you look back in your conversations with people? I made a little note to myself because we were, what were we fighting about? I wrote it all down last night. Here I have a piece of paper. It's a sort of 60s-style flowchart. Just the relationship between what I dubbed the sensual reel and the shadow reel, or the apophatic reel. Anyway, got into a fight with Sebastian Alvarez about apophatic. Apophatic theology is a concept that God exists in sacred darkness or sacred ignorance. And I'm not going to explain what I wrote down on this piece of paper today, but I did, in the corner of it, apologize to Sebastian for being rude about claiming that we survive when we see or breathe. I couldn't note about the biophone there, which is a term my mother made up. Anyway,
that's
knowing
good.
that you need to apologize.
Friends are the people that you apologize to.
Yeah, well, that's right.
There we go.
That's right. I got a great, for instance, Donna Sheehan used to get very angry with me all the time, and the very interesting thing about this is, when you come from the pedestrian world of mainstream American sort of non-culture, when somebody really strongly disagrees with you, think, wow, is that person ever going to talk to me again? And then sort of miraculously, 72 hours later, Donna would say, why don't you come over, have a glass of wine, some goat cheese? I was like, she was just like incandescently upset with me 72 hours ago, and she's invited me back over to have a glass of wine, some goat cheese. That's really beautiful. And it teaches you a lesson is that if you can forgive somebody, do. If if you can't, I understand. But if you can, that really I thought was very, very telling. How forgiving,
wonderful person she
What
was.
about when you inherit friends?
Inherit them?
You have a long-term relationship with someone. She has these friends for life, and they're not necessarily people that you'd be friendly with, and yet you find yourself in tremendous contact with those people because they're close friends with your other.
I would just say you got divorced for a reason. Dump the friends as well. No, you don't think so?
So,
Talking to me?
No, I was talking to Stephen, but he's clammed up.
I don't think he's talking about
I don't.
he's
Inherited
talking about
friends.
being in the inherited friends
so
while
before
you're
you break
in the
up.
relationship.
Yes, that's right.
I totally relate to that
Exactly.
too.
You have a long-term relationship. Your partner has these friends that you don't necessarily want to make friends. You end up finding yourself in their presence repeatedly.
It's painful, but I've always been much more interesting than anyone I've dated. So,
Oh, man. How's that dating thing going, buddy? Anyway, MK, thank you so much.
Sure. Have a
Lovely
good
to
day.
hear from you. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
So, I'd just like to say this is KWMR, 90.5 in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 Bolinas, 92.3 in San Geronimo Valley, streaming live always at kwmr.org. And programming is underwritten by our listeners and by the Palace Market in downtown Point Reyes Station, offering produce, cheeses, wines, a full deli and meat department, and an assortment of natural health foods and supplements. And we're also supported by Marin Agricultural Land Trust, a member-supported non-profit organization working to preserve Marin County farmland. On the web at malt.org. That's MALT.org. And KWMR is turning 19, and we're celebrating at Lagunitas Brewing Company in Petaluma again this year. We'd love to have you join us. The party is Monday, May 14th. From 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. and will feature a raffle, a custom cake, the Bodega food truck, live music from the Westmoreland School Gospel Singers and Rock Band, wow, and our headlining band, Marble Party. All ages welcome, adults $5, kids under 10 free. Tickets at kwmr.org. Yes, big party at Lagunitas Beer Garden. Ha ha. We have a caller. Hi, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please? Hello? Hello, caller. You're on the air. Yep.
if you please do call back 663-8492 or 663-8317 to join the conversation about friendship.
Friendship.
I've been trying to think about friends. When you go to a different place, you really do lose track. But say Yoni Goldstein, for example, makes a point of visiting, and I know you have friends that visit you, and if you do that, you can try and keep in contact and keep try and maintain that. But
there's that thing too where you haven't seen someone for a long time, but then when you get together, it's just bam, you still have that same deep connection and that same flow with the person, even though you don't interact with them regularly.
That's what you get with your 50-year acquaintances, friends?
Yes.
They recount their crimes.
We keep in contact with the other. It's not like we are coming back. It's not like an old friend we haven't seen for a long time. And we find that rapport is still there. These are people that we, see. We make a point to see each other. And Gail always says that you have to work on it. If you want to keep family together, if you want friends, it doesn't happen by itself. It's something you have to work on.
So, per your point about inheriting friends, how does Gail feel about your friends from 50 years ago? Personal question.
Gail, please call in.
She likes them. She'd like to be included more on the gatherings. Sometimes we include significant others. Sometimes we don't.
Oh, I see. It's like a stag party deal.
But here's an interesting one.
More a football game.
The Stormy Daniels thing.
What about jealousy in friendships? There is a local couple. I will not reveal who they are, only to use the word tiger in reference to these people. Paul Paul Raffel and I actually saw Mrs. Tiger on the street, and we went over and to her place, and she had a friend visiting, and we all had a glass of champagne. Her husband came home, and he was like, "What were you doing hanging out with my friends?" I was like, I thought we're friends with both of them.
That's right, possession.
What are you? Yeah. Are you jealous? Do you have jealousy in friendship? What
I know people who are. Yeah.
Why are you with my friends?
Surprising.
I don't know how
it's
that
always
would happen.
surprising.
Yes, inherited friends. I have recently inherited some good friends of my partners who are from old school days. I mean, from L.A. and yeah, it's interesting. It's like inheriting family. Also done that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. Again, that would be a different kind of friendship. I think those kind of connections could become friendship, right. But they really aren't. You try and engage your partner's friends because you're supporting your partner.
Well, when I see them, but it doesn't happen all that often anyway, especially out here in the wilds. And we have a caller. What's your name, please?
Quick, it's Sally. Put me on the air before I
Explode.
go into a cell phone dead zone again.
You're on.
You're on the air.
Oh, my God.
Violating
Keep
the
it
law.
clean, please.
Oh, damn it. Well, friendship. I have I'm still friends with my 2nd grade through 5th grade best friend.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of that. And she lives in Maine, and periodically we get together. Not very often, but it's there. The bond is there forever, you know. And we smoked cigarettes behind her house when we were, like, in 4th grade.
Excellent.
I was terrified of her parents.
I have a question, caller. What about the difference between the way women make friends with other women, or maybe with other men, and the way men make friends? Do you think there's a strong difference between women and their friendships and men and their friendships?
Yes.
Well, short to the point.
I think that women are capable, that's wrong. Women, it appears to me from my experience and observation, that women go much, much deeper verbally, emotionally, and men maybe do when there's a crisis, or maybe men who are more inclined to be more open and in touch with their emotions. Is this just a terrible thing to say? God.
No,
I don't know, because I have a lot of male friendships. And
quite true.
By the way, I heard Jeremy Irons on Radio 4 the other day saying that he didn't think that Charles Ryder and Sebastian Fleidt were having a sexual relationship. He thought this is the quality of the kind of intimacy that can happen between two men in a friendship, in a platonic friendship. But I would just say,
shows he's wrong. It's all about people being completely pent up, and it's all underpinnings and subtext. I disagree.
Well, I mean, the same Jeremy Irons who said when gay marriage is legalized that he could marry his son to escape inheritance tax. So maybe he isn't the best source on these questions. But no, I'm just saying, I have friendships, and you can tell that certain friendships with men, that they would tell you things about their relationship with their significant other. I'm not saying that they wouldn't say to their significant other, but they'll try these things out to see how do you react to the way I'm feeling about this particular situation, because when they do want to have a serious conversation with their significant other, they'd like to maybe have talked about it with somebody else beforehand. So I think there is a real can be a real intimacy in male friendships.
So what I was going to say before Charles decided he needed to interview me, but since he is a person who is my friend, I will forgive him. What I wanted to say is that I did inherit a family friend when I got married, and man, that was tough. It was a very, very close family friend, like the best frenemy of my sister-in-law. And I had to, somehow be friends with her. And it was so difficult.
Huh.
We really just did not get along. So, Stephen, to your point, those can be tricky, those inherited friendships. On the other hand, I've met a lot of people through my partner, and I like all those people. And
Very convenient.
And that actually makes the
fortunate.
relationship much more delightful, all the more delightful. I have had relationships. I had one I can think of in particular where I couldn't relate to any of the person's friends.
Ooh, bad sign.
Very bad sign.
Really, it was like, oh, help.
Does it make you start to think, well, how does he see me if he's friends with all these people?
Well, or that on the
They weren't terrible people or anything. They were lovely, kind people. I just had 0.00 in common with them, and at the point where we were having like a weird folk singer sing along on the first time I ever went to this one couple's house, I had to watch like a long, what was it, one of those montages, one of those videos, or a computer-generated montage of their lives together. These people who I was just meeting.
Wow.
Where in
Was this
Marin-
how they introduced themselves to
I
people?
almost wanted to run away screaming because it was really long. I mean,
Oh, Lord.
the person who went to film school, I'm like, excessive.
Can you become a friend?
Learn how to edit.
Can you be Sally? Can you be a friend of somebody you just met? Does that happen?
Friendship at first sight?
Your new best friend.
Well, you can. I think you can really hit it off with someone. Yes. And then you
Hit it
have a
off.
rapport. Sure, it's like chemistry.
Yeah, you sort of know right away.
Time will tell. I mean, because ultimately you have challenges. You know, if you're going to have that kind of intimacy that you guys were talking about earlier, where you have challenges, I mean, some people who are very opposed politically are friends or married couples. So I don't know. I mean, I think it takes a certain temperament. Some people can be best friends throughout having differences, strong political or whatever belief system differences. Personally, I couldn't pull that off.
You know, if
Yeah, I have
somebody's
trouble
just
with that, too.
grinding you with their differences, though, I just can't see how they can be a friend. You can have differences, but if someone brings it up over and over again.
Oh,
Well, that's an issue.
Yeah.
Like if you're not learning from the conversation,
Right.
I mean, so you have to be reflective. You know, like I say, and I made my little note. Apologize to Sebastian.
Which is what Mo was talking about, our first caller. That was there's this couple that they know who are completely opposite on politics and religion, and yet they are able to have discussions and love each other and get together with each other all the time. That's a wonderful thing.
I mean,
You mentioned something in that being different. Can you, our friends, can you ignore those differences? You know they're there, but you just have made a pact never to talk about them.
It depends on if it's ever put to a test. Like I'd say, if you like your partner's friends, I think oftentimes that's because they're true friends and they contain a part of the thing that you like about your partner. If you don't like your partner's friends, often I think that these are just strategic acquaintanceships that people have. It's the people they think they need to be associated with for their own sense.
I like that term, strategic acquaintanceship.
Well, that's
I think you hit it on the head there. There are some people. I mean, one time someone came over who was like ostensibly a new friend of my then husband, and he was really like a completely offensive person.
I didn't know you then. That's funny you'd say that.
And he worked for, he worked for like some terrible company, some corporate, evil corporate. And I first time ever, I just told my husband, this guy, he's never coming into this house again.
wow.
Well, good to put your foot down.
That's a test.
He worked for Siemens,
Oh, right.
The
Giant
Anyway.
German multinational.
Yes, and he was just a completely inappropriate guest.
Yeah.
Well, so that's a very interesting thing about friendship too. Say you're in a partnership, can you say to your partner, not that person? And clearly, Paul, you can't. That would be very difficult to negotiate. Like, I really don't like so-and-so.
Yeah. And well, it's all
Wow.
about negotiation.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Lovely show.
Thank you so much for
I'm
calling.
going to venture back into the cell phone void again as I wander away somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you for your fabulous show.
Thank you for calling.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you, caller. 663-8492.
So,
Give us a call.
So now, talking about social groupings, which is what started this whole thing, Dunbar's number, social groupings, you could make the argument that Facebook friends and strategic acquaintances are part of a social group. It could be similar to living in a tribe, for they're saying 200 and 300 would classify as sort of a tribal network of people that you know. So maybe that work. Maybe it works on that level. Maybe Facebook works on that level. In a tribe, you'd know people by sight, but you wouldn't necessarily really know them. Except usually in tribes, you're all kind of
Like when you're in school, you know a lot of people, and you can be friendly with them, and you can do projects with them, but you might not know them on a deeper level.
Well, BFs, right?
I dropped out of high school because I hated the superficiality of the social context, and then I moved to West Marin. So I've been punished.
Excellent.
8 years.
So, yeah.
8 years of extra high school I had to do.
Paula,
You might
you're
look
on
at
the air.
yourself
What's your name,
Charles.
please?
This is Corinne calling.
I have socks for you, and
I know you do.
I knew you'd call, by the
my
way.
socks.
yeah, your socks were left with me. There's a long story there, but caller, tell us what you were going to say.
Anyhow, what I was going to say is, as I have gotten older, I've noticed that who is friends and who is good acquaintances. Because I used to think that I had a lot of friends, and then I found that when I was in a bad space, in my life, I noticed who was really my friends.
Oh.
And a lot of people that were just really good acquaintances. It doesn't mean I don't care about them and stuff. It just meant like they were not really there. They were not able to be there for whatever reason. And so now, and I look back, I said, at my age, my friends, what I can call my friends, is a relatively small bunch. But I have a childhood girlfriend. We grew up together. We were born 10 months apart, and we've known each other all our life. And she lives in Denmark, and we're very good friends. And I'm very good friends with her daughter and family. And so I have friends that goes way back.
Yeah.
And it's like somebody was saying earlier. It's like we can have not see each other for a year, but the minute we walk into each other's presence, we're right back to where we left. It just picks up where we left. And I think that's real friends. You know? Yeah. And of course, about Marshall, both Fred and I feel like ever since we moved out here, we have a lot of, friends and amazing acquaintances and amazing neighbors, which we have never had when we lived before, ever. So I think that, there is various levels of friends, but I think when you talk about like a real good friends, those are the ones when somebody mentioned that you can get into an argument about, and then the next minute, you give each other a hug and say, "Come over for a glass of wine." I think it was Charles referring to Donna, and it's like I think that is true friends when you can have really good arguments, and you still love each other. You're still friends. It's just you have different opinions.
It feels really. It's really an amazing feeling. It's because you don't lose somebody just because you disagree with them.
Exactly.
And both Charles and I are guilty of having arguments with our friends, and we are forgiven all the time.
Well, me and Paul never have arguments, but if we do, I'm always in the right.
I would say
that's how our friendship
works. I would say both of you are what you identify as close friends.
And again, that was an amazing experience, but it was associated with a place. It was, somebody said, go down there and meet those people, and I did, and that was fabulous.
Will you lose your friendship when he goes back east for 2 weeks?
For 2 weeks. In an Aristotelian sense, yes. But I'm just saying, like, when you get together, the old friends, and it's just like we haven't been going, this is just this kind of nostalgia party that happens. But,
if
if they moved in next door for the next 10 years, you would have all these other things to negotiate about whether, you'd have all the bumps of that person rather than just the crunchy with the smooth you'd have to deal with.
I also have an expression, and I like that. It's like, my friends will understand, and the rest really doesn't matter. If they don't understand who I am, then it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, and actually somebody, I think it was, I don't know who it was that said, but in regards to, you have to work on your friendship. You can't just not work on it. And that was actually something my son taught me many years ago, in regards to family, too. He said, Mom, he said, family goes the same way. You don't just, you have to work on being together. Just because it's family doesn't mean that you're automatically in relationship with them.
Right, you can't take people for granted.
Exactly. But I think I can only speak for myself, and I think Fred feels the same way. That out here, we do feel that we have some really wonderful friends, and I would hope that people out here also think that we're good friends, because it's the community out here is amazing.
Yeah, well, not that we know each other, because that would mean there's some kind of partiality going on here, but you've always been very welcoming to your home of all the people around you, of your friends in Marshall. So, yes, of course, it's lovely.
That's a wonderful practice. I would say, invite people that you have contact with, invite them over, throw a party, try and get, or as my friend said, ask a favor of someone or offer to do a favor for someone. Try and give your relationships more depth.
Exactly. I like what you said, Charles. That you're a good babysitter.
All the baby did was sleep. Okay, this is the important thing. I didn't actually have to do anything.
Well, but I mean, just the fact that you, a single guy, are willing to hang out with a little baby, I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, and indeed. And again, I don't want to have to reference the fact that I am Catholic again, because that would just put the whole wrong slant on. But I love that. It's like the play dates. I can't stand play date culture. I don't mean that because in Marshall we just make up parties and they just sort of happen spontaneously, and sometimes I instigate these things. But so it's not that I don't like parties like a priori, like they're bad. But the play dates, the overly planned, the overly curated, I'd much rather just drop by in an afternoon and have a beer with somebody. I'd much rather dig a ditch with somebody, or to part of your like everyday flow of life, rather than this special moment where we have to behave in a special way in a special place in a special.
Exactly.
It overburdens it. So I'd say unburden your friendships.
I guess that's why we like to throw those things twice a year.
Marshall is very different from Inverness. I found when I lived there that meeting new people and trying to make those friends was very hard to do. It's a very insular place.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Did you have that same
the houses
experience?
are really spread out.
But not necessarily.
Hidden a little bit.
Hidden away, yeah.
Well, go knock on your neighbor's
and
door.
no real town.
Okay. So, Paul, Fred and I, we will pop by one of these days, when we see your car. And we actually almost stopped by on Sunday. That was the funny thing.
Oh, yeah.
When we got back, then we got an invitation from Sally. It was like, oh, we should have stopped by.
Well, and I think is knock on your neighbor's door and say hello. A no is free. If they're a jerk, so what? You haven't lost anything. Now you know your neighbor's a jerk. But try, really try and engage in your neighborhood, because we don't.
Meet your neighbors.
Yeah, I mean Inverness is a nightmare of this. I met a woman in her 80s who loved bonsai, and it had turned out that for about 5 decades she'd had a neighbor down the street who also loved bonsai. It's an interesting echo effect here. Oh, thank you. Who also loved bonsai, and they didn't know each other. If at any point in 50 years one of them had just randomly shouted bonsai, they would have met. That was quite sad. But that's Inverness.
So, anyhow, I look forward to seeing my socks in a little while.
Oh, well, the socks are coming your way.
Okay.
I have mine, by the way. I got
Thank you,
socks.
Karine.
Knock on the door. So.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll do.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Karine from Marshall. Yes, Marshall has been just because I've been there for so long, or I was there. Yeah, it is an interesting place for getting to know the neighbors, and through getting to know them, they become friends. It's quite a lovely place for that. There's something about it being all spread out and on the highway, and all doors are right there, and you can see if anyone's parked outside.
Yeah, right. So and so's home.
Let's go say hi. But yes.
Well, in Marshall, there's been such a changeover in terms of people who live there that there are people they're coming and they want to make friends. And it's like a desire.
Yeah.
I'm glad they have that desire. But the other thing is, of course, haven't we lost track of the Fens and the Kylers and
sure.
no, I mean all the over in Inverness, all the people that move away, and I think that's quite sad. Everybody has their own people who have been displaced in West Marin that they miss.
That's a pretty good idea. We should have a reunion of people who've left Marshall. There's probably dozens.
Yes.
there are quite a few. But when they're gone, they're gone. I mean, I think it's an important point that that space we can try and bridge it with FacePage and Insta Shoe or whatever. I don't know what these things are. But it's not. There's something about actually being in the same space with another person, which I think is unique.
Well, thank you all. We got off to a rough start thanks to my ineptitude, but I'd just like to say thank you to Stephen and Shelley and Charles.
My pleasure.
And you, Paul.
All our listeners and callers, thank you for calling in today. It's always about the callers, by the way. Don't pay any attention to what we say, because KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. We'll be back next week with some new and exciting topic.
Have a beautiful day.
Meanwhile, as Stephen says, have a beautiful day, and off we go.